This is The Current on CBC Radio 1. My name's Matt Galloway. It's been almost 5 months since a downing of Flight 752. 176 people were killed when Iran shot 2 missiles at the Ukrainian passenger plane. Many of the people killed were from Canada's Iranian-Canadian community. Hamed Ismailian lost his 9-year-old daughter, Rira, and his wife, Parisa, on that plane. We spoke with Hamed in February, a month after the plane was shot down. He's now speaking for an association representing the families of the Canadians who died on that flight, and he joins us again. Hamed, good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
It's been about 4 months since I spoke with you. How are you doing?
I live day by day. Every morning when I get up, I just search PS752 in Farsi and English to find the new news coming out. And I have had a very difficult week because Rira's birthday was on Saturday. So, very difficult. Yeah.
You're doing that searching to find answers for yourself, but you're also part of this group, the Association of Families of Flight PS752 Victims. Tell me a little bit about that group and what the group offers you. So far, we have 35 Canadian victims' families in our group, and more than 100 of families all around the world, from Iran, Sweden, Canada, UK, and Afghanistan. So we have 3 main goals. One is to remember the passengers. The other one is helping the families. And the main goal is seeking for justice. What does justice look like for you in this? The real justice is that Parisa and Rira come back. But it doesn't happen. But justice, to me, is to find the truth, to find what happened that morning in Iran, and to see the perpetrators in an international court. What sort of actions have you taken with the group? You've been in contact with the Canadian government, certainly, but what sort of actions are you taking right now? We found several interesting things that we are still working on. For example, that night, there was an unexpected delay, 36 minutes, and we don't know the reason of the delay, because at the same time, there was no flight into Iran, and they even canceled the domestic flights in the other airports. The other thing is we found the one flight before PS752 has a very unusual path. We don't know what's the reason. These are questions. We just raise more questions that we want answers for. We send a lot of letters, reports. I'm sure Mr. Goodale has received some of them. There was a very, very disturbing news from Ukrainian head of forensic that the passengers of the flight, nobody fastened her belt or his belt. It's unusual. Mm-hmm. Have you had any contact with the Iranian government? No, we haven't had. We had one of the families that talked to him like 3 months ago, but not at all, no. We know that some of the families of the victims have been reporting being harassed and threatened by Iranian officials here in Canada, but also in Iran in the days and weeks after that crash. Is that something that you went through? Oh, it's ongoing. They never stopped that. They insulted us. They harassed us. If I show you my Instagram page, you can see hundreds of messages coming from their cyber army. They're very active. Even they photoshopped my photo, to just defame me. What do you think is going on there? Why would they be doing that? Their goal is to finish the case in a domestic court. In their opinion, I think everything's over now because they never had handed over the black boxes, and it seems that they don't want to do it. And they just want to finish the case in a domestic court and just bring an operator to the court and say that was his fault, and that's it. You mentioned Mr. Goodale. That's Ralph Goodale, the former public safety minister. He was appointed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to be a special advisor on this file. What sort of contact have you had with Ralph Goodale? We have been in touch. We sent Mr. Goodale a lot of letters. We had a very productive meeting with Mr. Goodale, and we shared our concerns about the black boxes, about probably taking the case to the International Court of Justice. And hopefully we can work together through this in future.
What do you want from the Canadian government when it comes to action on this? I mean, if you talk about, for example, the black boxes, and Iran has missed this deadline to surrender these flight data recorders and the flight voice recorder, what can the Canadian government do?
If you remember, Matt, when I was on your first show on 6th of February, I said to you that Iran is not going to cooperate. So 4 months later, I think I was right. So you don't see the black boxes and the voice recorders of the cockpit, which is very important. Why? 2 weeks ago, Iranians said that the Supreme National Security Council will decide about the black box. For a country who has signed all the conventions and who is a member of ICAO, I don't understand that. And I think the only way to make this happen is an international pressure, as the way it worked at the very first 3 days. That was a body of lies, and finally they admitted that. So we are in the same situation right now.
And that's what you want from people like Ralph Goodale and the Canadian government, is that international pressure.
Yeah, we need to hear some good news after all these bad news that we heard. We live in Canada. After that, the pandemic happened, and after that, we had the mass killing of in Nova Scotia. My heart goes to everybody who was affected by pandemic and the victim families. Every bad news that we hear, that just revived what happened to us. We need to have some good news finally after 5 months.
You mentioned that your daughter Rira would have turned 10. It was her birthday just a few days ago.
Yeah.
When you think about her, what goes through your mind, and what did you do to mark that day?
Sorry, Matt. I'm thinking why Rira is not here to play soccer in the backyard. Why Parisa can't go for a walk in the afternoon. Everyone has a right to life, but it is taken from them and another 174 passengers. So I wrote to her last week that I'm deeply sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry to bring a soul to this world to end up in those 3 minutes of horror. I'm sorry to have failed to protect you from mankind's ill intentions and ignorance. What can I say to her? I'm in her room right now, and every morning I just say to her, what can I do? What can I do for you, Rira? So I have no answers for all those questions that I have, Matt. And it's ongoing. It's the same thing for other families, and everybody is suffering. So we need to find, we need to have a closure, and we need to find our answers. And we need to see those criminals that they did that atrocity come to justice. That's what I say to Rira every morning, that Rira, I will fight for your right. And to Parisa, same thing. Sorry.
I'm so sorry for what you've been through. It's just awful. And I wish you the best, and I hope we have the chance to talk again.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you very much.
Take care of yourself.
Bye. Bye.
Hamed Ismailian's 9-year-old daughter Rira and his wife Parisa were both killed on Ukrainian Airlines Flight 752. You can hear it there in his voice. The kind of loss is unimaginable, and it's compounded by so many unanswered questions. Ralph Goodale is one of the people trying to get some of those answers. He was appointed as the special advisor to the Prime Minister on this file. Ralph Goodale, good morning to you.
Good morning.
It is heartbreaking listening to Hamed Ismailian talk about the loss that he has experienced, but also you hear it in his voice, that sense of frustration and the weariness that the families are feeling. What is it like for you to listen to that?
I share many of the same emotions, obviously, not with the same intensity. Only a family member could experience that anguish. But I have had the opportunity to speak either personally or in a group setting over the phone with, I think, virtually all of the families. And it's an absolutely heart-wrenching experience. It just reinforces the determination of the Government of Canada to do everything we possibly can to support these families, to get transparency and accountability and ultimately justice for them. And I have asked them, what is their definition of justice?
What is your definition of justice in this?
Well, it's several things. In addition to all of the supports that need to be put in place to make sure the families have as much backing and comfort as absolutely possible. It's really a restatement of what Mr. Ismailian was talking about. What was the sequence of events and the chain of decisions that caused missiles to be launched that killed 55 Canadian citizens and 30 permanent residents of this country? How did that happen, and who was responsible for it happening? And secondly, why was a civilian airliner in the skies exposed and vulnerable in the midst of a dangerous conflict zone?
Are we any closer to knowing the answer to that question?
Well, we certainly are putting the pieces in place to get the answers as much as that is humanly possible to do.
But just back to the plane flying in the sky. I mean, this was a couple of hours after Iran shot dozens of missiles at a U.S. Army base or Army bases in Iraq. Do we know why the plane was allowed to fly? There was speculation that perhaps those passengers were being used as human shields. Is that the line of questioning that we're following right now as a nation?
We're following every line of questioning. And none of the answers are available yet. The painful reality is that this is a long process. And Mr. Ismailian made a very good point about the need for the international community to pull together. There is a coordinating group, as you know, consisting of Canada. Minister Champagne is the leader of it. It includes the UK, Sweden, Ukraine, and Afghanistan, the other countries that lost passengers on that ill-fated plane. We have to use that coordinating group as a form of pressure to demand the proper action in the international community. On the black boxes, for example, the presentation that got the commitment from Iran was one made by Transport Minister Garneau.
But two months have gone by, and Iran hasn't handed those black boxes over. So what good was that?
That is unacceptable, and the international community has to take the steps, and this is very laid out in very precise detail about how the international community deal with these issues.
Have you had any contact with the Iranian government over the black boxes?
Me directly, no. That's up for the Prime Minister and Minister Champagne to have those direct communications. And very early in the going, both the Prime Minister and Minister Champagne made it abundantly clear that Canada is expecting a transparent process that leads to accountability and the answering of these questions. That pressure will continue to be applied either directly by Canada or in concert with our main investigative partner, which is Ukraine, and the other countries in the coordinating group and through international organizations. We will push with every ounce of effort we've got to help deal with that awful anguish that you heard in the voice of Mr. Ismailian.
I guess just back to the frustration. It's been 5 months since this plane was shot out of the sky with so many Canadians on board. Do we have any more answers 5 months later than we had 5 weeks after this happened?
In terms of the criminal investigation, no, we don't.
So aside from saying we want accountability and saying again we want accountability and justice, what can Canada actually do?
The answer here, I think, is assembling pressure and pressure points among the international community. So it's not just Canada alone. One country alone is not going to be able to get the answers that the world deserves.
Ralph Goodale, good to speak with you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good to talk to you.
Ralph Goodale, former Minister of Public Safety and Special Advisor to Prime Minister Trudeau on the downing of Ukrainian Airlines Flight 752.